Welcome back, it's me, Lou. For today's video, it's going to be a double feature as we feature these two older action figures. And when I say older, these are action figures from like the mid 90s, I believe. So join me as we hop into the time machine and travel way back as we feature McFarlane Toys Wetworks action figures. So, for those of you old enough to remember, Wetworks was a comic book published by Image Comics way back in the early 90s. It was the brainchild of artist Whilce Portacio, and these action figures were super popular at the time. McFarlane Toys, in addition to producing his line of action figures featuring his Spawn characters, he tapped into some of the other Image comic books. And he produced toys for like Rob Liefeld's Youngblood and also Whilce Portacio's Wetworks. Wetworks was a fun book. It's pretty much cool looking dudes with big guns taking on vampires and werewolves. And man, these action figures really take me back. So let's get started. Alright, so over here on our left, we have the character Mother One. She features multi-function, interchangeable cybernetic arms. You can tell this character was definitely designed in the 90s by a man. Here she is wearing the skimpiest of all bikinis. Even though she's covered in gold armor, she's still very, very much almost near naked. But she makes up for that with all these cool weaponry. You can swap out her arms and give her like, machine guns, give her like some sort of like medical claw, a laser beam. It's pretty neat. In terms of the articulation, this figure is very limited. Back then, we didn't have all the craziness that we do now. Her head could rotate, her arms could rotate, and in this case, they can actually swap out. She has elbow bends, wrist articulation. She could bend at the knees, but I don't think she lacks ankle articulation. Really, really cool design. There's the Wetworks logo. On the back, we have the lineup of all the Wetworks characters. So this was Series 1. Series 2 would come much sooner. There was also Youngblood. And Spawn. Lots of cool action figures. McFarlane Toys was super popular back then. I mean, they're popular now, but man, during the 90s, they were really running on all cylinders. Here's a bio card featuring Mother One. And I believe this figure is slightly different than the final product. I think she comes with different accessories, I think. And then here's a nice bio on the character. Really awesome. Moving along, we're going to take a look at the field leader of the Wetworks team. We have Dane. So here's Dane, the removable combat jacket and belts, flip up headgear. So he came with a headset, ammo belt, removable vest, this giant machete, and this crazy looking gun. If I remember correctly, I believe this character was modeled somewhat after the Dutch character played by Arnold Schwarzenegger from the film Predator. Wonderful looking figure, as you can see here. The detail's amazing. Nice vest. The vest is removable. But much like Mother One, very limited in the articulation. But for the 90s, these figures were much larger than what the competition was producing. These were much bigger and much more detailed than like the Toy Biz action figures. Some years later, Toy Biz would enter the 6-inch arena with like the Marvel Legends and some of their other toy lines. But during this era, McFarlane kind of beat everyone to the punch with these large action figures, and the detail, the paint application, and the accessories, it was all next level. They really raised the bar. And his back is pretty much identical to the rest of the Wetworks figures. And he also comes with a bio card right here. So that's him decked out with all the accessories. And since we have the figures here, lucky for you, I do have them loose also. So we can take a look at some of these figures loose. Minus the accessories though. I have the accessories in a bag somewhere. So first up, let's take a look at Mother One. As I said earlier, very skimpy bodysuit. Nice detailing on the character overall. Her arms are swappable, so you can easily unplug them and just swap them out with, any of these other arms that came packaged with her. She has these tubes that connect from her back. And you just plug them in. Nice clean details, well sculpted for this time period. Articulation, as I stated, is very limited. There was something weird during the 90s. They can never figure out how to properly articulate the legs on the female figures. They couldn't just kick straight forward. They always kicked out like this, which was weird. It's like they were so worried about breaking the aesthetic around this area. If you didn't cut the legs right, it'd look weird. But at the same time, the articulation was just horrible. It doesn't really do much. But it's a really beautiful figure, especially for this time period. I want to say I think she might have been the least popular of the figures, just because she wasn't decked out with all like the firepower like the other toys had. But she's awesome. She still has a place in my heart. I like this figure a lot. So that's Mother One. Now Dane here was probably my favorite figure in the line. I thought this was a great figure. I loved the look of the character. Looks very stern, very stoic. His vest is removable. It actually clasps at these 2 points right here. And then here's the figure without the vest. It always kind of bothered me that this figure was a little bit too asymmetrical for my taste, especially in the way he stands. Since these figures were very limited in their articulation, they're almost kind of like pre-posed somewhat. So it always kind of bothered me that this arm was kind of sticking out further than this one. It almost looked like this hand, like he was going to draw his gun. But it's kind of bizarre because even though his gun went on this side, I believe the only hand that could hold it properly might have been this hand. But it just looked odd that this arm was kind of like, half an inch out more than this one. The sculpting is nice. I love the gold finish on these characters. It's a nice gold, bronze, near metallic finish. His head rotates. Arms rotate. I believe he has wrist articulation. His legs could kick up and his knees bend. And that's the extent of his articulation. Very limited, but nonetheless, it was a beautiful figure. Especially if he had the entire team. They look so impressive on a shelf displayed together. So yeah, these were great toys. I like these figures a lot. I've said this before. I really wish McFarlane Toys would revisit some of these characters. Of course, obtaining the rights for these characters is a different story. But I would love to see the Wetworks team redone with like modern action figure engineering. Especially with what McFarlane's doing with the DC Multiverse toys. Those things are outstanding. And if you could apply, that kind of articulation and engineering and detail to like these characters, I think that would be fantastic. So yeah, these are a wonderful, wonderful little bit of history, especially for like if you're a fan of McFarlane Toys. These were some of the figures that really raised the bar in terms of what fans and other companies expected from their action figures. Okay, so let's wrap this video up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for your support. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. Alright, later.